In today's video, I'm going to review some of the key differences between Fidelity and Vanguard index funds. First, I'll discuss fees and then review performance. I'll show you an easy way to compare funds side by side so you can narrow down your options and choose investments for your portfolio. But first, what's up? My name's Maggie and I simplify investing and make it accessible for everyone, not just those who are already wealthy. If you're here to learn so you can get your money working for you, then be sure to subscribe. And now let's get back to it. Vanguard is known for its low-cost funds, and they have excellent options available. Their average expense ratio is 0.07%, which is 70 cents for every $1,000 invested, or $7 for every $10,000 invested, or $70 for every $100,000 invested per year. One downside with Vanguard index funds is they have a $3,000 minimum to get invested. This means you need at least $3,000 per fund you want to buy. So if you're planning to buy 3 funds, for example, you need $9,000 to start out. If you're not at that point, then you can just rule Vanguard out altogether and move along to Fidelity or other funds. But getting back to fees, the industry average is 0.23%, which is $23 per 10,000, so 3 times more costly. Fidelity has come on strong to compete with Vanguard and offers even lower fees on their index funds. Their average is 0.04, so 40 cents per $1,000 invested, $4 for $10,000, and $40 for every $100,000 invested per year. Before we move on to performance, let's see how these fees add up over time. All right, I like to use this calculator from NerdWallet. It's a mutual fund calculator. It helps you see the fees, how much your fees will add up to over time. So if you just scroll down, you can come in and enter your own numbers of what you would actually be investing, but I'm gonna just use kind of their pre-selected numbers. So $1,000 initially investing over 30 years, and we're gonna put in $5,000 per year. Let's say a 7% rate of return, and the fund expense ratio, so we'll start with Vanguard's at 0.07%, and then we calculate what that would add up to over time. So the account's value would be $506,000. You would end up paying $6,794 in fees over 30 years. That's not bad at all, of course, and we can see this is a very low cost fund. So that was Vanguard's. Now let's compare it to Fidelity's. So instead of the 0.07, we're looking at 0.04. So take a note, the total cost is $6,700 here. If we go to 0.04, it's $3,800. So lower, but not significant, right? Especially over 30 years. So that's where you can see, okay, having a low cost fund is great, very important, but it doesn't have to be the lowest of the lowest ever, as long as it's low cost. But let's compare it to the industry average, which is 0.23. So we're looking at like between $3,000 and $7,000, or 4 and 8, whatever, to the average, which is 0.23%. Now we calculate this. So now you're paying $21,000. So instead of like $3,000 to $7,000, you're over 30 years, you're paying $21,000. Now you can see that starts to add up. I mean, still you're making $500,000. So like, that's fine to spend $21,000 to make $500,000. But if you can do it for 3 or 4 or 5,000, of course, that extra $15,000 is just more money for your own net worth to go on vacation or do whatever you want with. And we can see if, and these are funds, right? If we can see if we go even higher, like let's say you pay 1%, you're paying $88,000. Now we're getting into some high fees, okay? And that's the type of stuff we really want to avoid paying, because why would you spend $88,000 when you could spend $4,000? That's all extra money that you're leaving on the table. So being aware of the fees does really, or can really impact you in the long run. So I really encourage you to come in here, run the numbers on what you are paying or what you plan to pay, and see how that adds up over time. Assessing fees is one part of choosing our investments, but keep in mind that it is better to pay a high fee and be invested than allow the fear of fees to keep you from investing altogether. That being said, high fees do mean you keep less of your account's growth overall, so being aware of them and focusing on getting low-cost fees on your funds is important. Moving on to performance. With index funds, you're not looking for superior performance of one versus another, because if they are the same type of fund, they should have the same performance since they hold the same underlying investments inside them. If you need a breakdown on how index funds work, take a look at this video because I do break it down there. Now, even though I expect performance to be the same, I still like to double check to make sure and to get an idea of what to expect from my funds. I also like to compare different funds in the same category side by side to help me narrow down my options. There could be growth focused or value focused or a mixture. So here's what I look for. I'm going to use the Fidelity site for our comparison because they have a good side-by-side list of their funds versus Vanguard funds, so it makes it an easy place to pull from. So you just go to Fidelity, and I'm going to have this linked below. Oh, I forgot to mention they do offer 4 different index funds that are completely free to use. So they're their zero funds. They've got a large cap index fund, and they have an international and a total stock market fund. So these are worth looking at as well. But I'm going to show you how to compare similar funds to each other side by side. So first of all, looking at this list, the Fidelity funds are over here, the Vanguard funds are on the other side, and the ones that are the same essentially are line by line shown here. Like the first one, for example, is meant to track the S&P 500, so it's America's 500 largest companies in one fund. And these two should be the exact same essentially, but you can see the fee on the Fidelity fund is lower than the Vanguard fund. So that's where Fidelity is coming on strong as competing on the fee side of things. But anyway, let's get into comparing some side by side. So with this first one, I'm just going to copy the symbol, and then I'm going to come over to a Google tab. Okay, I'm going to enter the fund into Google. And then if you scroll down a bit, you'll see the fund breakdown. So right here, you can see how it's performing. You can click these to expand the different time frame. Like this is a 1-year time frame, this is a 5-year time frame. But what we want to do to look at them side by side is click more about Fidelity, and then it'll expand this. Since this is an S&P 500 fund, I want to compare it to the S&P 500 to actually see how to make sure that it lines up, right? So you can see the 2 lines are very much side by side. So that means it's doing its job, basically. And the other fund is the Vanguard fund. So I'm going to copy that one, which is, okay, it's VFIAX. So you just hit search over here and then VFIAX, Vanguard. And then that pops it in there. So the Vanguard is the teal color. What you want to see is exactly this, them going side by side in comparison to each other. So they do the same thing. This is why I said that you're not looking for better performance of one over the other. You're just looking that they're doing the job, which is to track the S&P 500. So if you were trying to choose a large cap fund, either the general S&P 500, a growth, or a value, for example, then you would want to look at them side by side and make a decision based on what you see. I'm going to enter this one as well, which is the large cap value. So we can see the large cap value is the yellow, the large cap growth is that light blue, the teal color, and the S&P 500 is the middle line. It's the regular blue color. And this is over a 5-year time frame. So we can see the growth has done much better, the value has done worse, and the general S&P 500 falls right in the middle. So how do you make a decision? Because here's the thing, if you choose the best performing, you have to realize that comes with more risk than the others. And when we're saying growth, basically this is going to be something that's tilted more towards growth. So like the Amazons, Apples, Googles, Facebook, those companies that are really focused on growth. And then the value companies are more focused on sustaining their current level of operations, I guess. So they're going to be the well-known household names like Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, and I can't think of all of them right now, but those are going to be the differences. And so you don't always want to pick the best performer if you know that you're going to be exposed to more risk. Or if this is really long-term money, maybe that's what you go for, like taking on more risk because you have more time on your side. But this is basically how you can compare different funds side by side, but also think of the downside as well as the upside. So if you wanted to just go down the middle, you can just pick the S&P 500, the one in the middle for this example, instead of like the really high extreme or the one that's maybe a little bit more steady. But that's how I put them side by side when I am having a tough time deciding, and let the numbers help me along the process. Fidelity funds are the lower cost option, but you may need to have an account at Fidelity to use them. I know they weren't available at E-Trade when I rolled over my 401k into my IRA, so I ended up using Vanguard funds. Another thing to consider is if you're gonna invest in individual stocks and are on a limited budget, that's a good reason to use Fidelity because they offer stock slices, which means you can buy a partial share of a stock versus the whole stock. Take a look at this video for more information on that if you want to learn about stock slices. One reason you may want to use Vanguard over Fidelity is for their low-cost robo-advisor. They charge 0.15% versus Fidelity's 0.35%. Fidelity waives the fee if you do have less than $10,000 invested though, so overall I do think Fidelity is the way to go as you're getting started, and you can always make changes in the future as your situation changes. If you're getting tired of watching all the videos and trying to figure out investing on your own, then my course, Start Investing with Confidence, just may be the perfect solution for you. It's launching soon, so get on the wait list in the description below. You'll find all the information there and you'll be notified when it's available. In the meantime, if you do want to keep learning, take a look at these two videos. Be sure to subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.